So glad to have everyone back with us tonight. Hope everyone is excited to continue the program and begin our first workshop of the evening. I want to introduce to you all a great supporter of LNESC, someone who has been a part of the seminar for the last few years, who truly cares about helping young people succeed. Cathy C. Lively is the Manager of Diversity and Inclusion for Nissan North America. She has been with Nissan since 2010, starting off as a contractor before transitioning to a full-time employee, and has advanced into various leadership roles within Nissan, being promoted to manager in March of 2018. Cathy is the co-founder of Nissan's first LGBT plus employee group, the Gay Straight Alliance at Nissan, and has received awards and recognition for her work in diversity and inclusion, as well as being elected the first board chair for the Entrepreneur Latina Leaders of America. She earned a Bachelor of Sciences degree from Eastern Illinois University and a Master of Sciences degree from Illinois State University. Cathy is presenting the workshop, Tell Your Story, which I'm sure you all enjoy and take away something from this experience. Let us give a warm virtual welcome to Cathy Lively from Nissan North America. Welcome, Cathy.
Oh, thank you, Raul. I really appreciate that welcome. This is one of my favorite events of the year, and I'm so happy to be with all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started.
Wonderful.
All right. So you are more than welcome to interact via the chat. And if you have if you have something you want to share, or we're going to do a little bit of, here we go. Sorry, I'm getting my Zoom set up how I need to. So if you have something you want to share, you're welcome to put it in the chat. If you want to participate, which will have some interaction later on, raise your hand, and Juan and Justin will help with that. So again, thank you, Raul, for providing us this opportunity. As Raul shared, I do work at Nissan. I am the manager in the diversity office. I sit in Tennessee, so right now I am sitting at my home right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So if you hear a southern drawl at any time, you know why. One of the things about telling your story is we know that you have to share it, right? And you cannot really be who you are without sharing your whole story. And it's very, very powerful. As this quote says, there is not one American legend who became successful without using the power of his or her story. You think about that, especially in this day and age with social media and the internet, how you really can find out anyone's story. But sometimes when you look at it from that perspective, it may not be the whole story, right? It may be bits and pieces. It may be someone else's view of the story. So what we're going to do today or this evening is, talk about how do you tell your story, because there's only one person who can do that, and that is you. I can't tell your story. And really nobody can tell my story. So how do we tell our story the best way possible? You are going to meet a lot of fantastic individuals during this next few days from a virtual perspective, but they're all going to want to stay connected with you. And how do you interact with those individuals ongoing? And so, really it's about your elevator speech. Some of you may have heard that term before. And in order to really engage with someone, you've got to practice that. You've got to really quickly be able to tell someone, this is who I am, this is where I am now, and this is where I want to go. And so you've got to hone in on some of the bits and pieces that's going to stand out to someone when you are sharing your story. As Raul shared with all of you, a lot of what he shared is parts of my story. So some of you may remember his introduction. Some of you, may not. I know it's late in the evening for some of us, are getting later. And so, what do you want to share with someone? That's really important. And you want to stand out. That's what makes you a leader. It also helps develop trust. and be inclusive and innovative within the organization. So at Nissan, we have a saying that you need to bring your whole self to work so that we can work better together and be innovative. And if you're not doing that, then we're only getting part of you, right? So if I'm not bringing all of who I am into the office every day, and I'm trying to hide a piece of me, then I'm not giving 100%. And if I'm not giving 100%, then something might be missing. Part of my story could really influence, a development or an innovative product or the next iteration of a vehicle. And that's why it's really important to always be your whole self and your true self. You want to use it as a tool because you want to go conquer the world. And normally when we do this, so I want all of you to do this at home or wherever you are. And if someone looks at you funny, it is totally okay. I want you to take a moment and think about, as you're getting ready to conquer the world, what makes you feel like you are just empowered? Is it, having an S underneath, your shirt? I imagine Superman, when he would go and change into his costume, or his costume is his outfit, if you will. And what does that look like, right? So strike your Superman pose, that pose that makes you confident. For some, it's was the dab, or it's not always doing the floss. It could be hands on your hips and staring someone in the eye. But just take a minute wherever you are and take that world, stand in that stance that says, I'm going to take this world by storm. And so I'm going to do that for just a second myself, because I think it really centers you and it gets you ready to say, no, this is me. This is who I am. And this is my story. So just take a second, strike your pose, and think about how you're going to conquer the world today. All right. So now that you are ready to conquer the world, you've got to be you. Where do you come from? So I am originally from Illinois, as you could probably tell, from where I got my degree. Where do you get your passion and your purpose? So you'll find that out in just a second about me. Act in a way that reflects your beliefs. I will not compromise who I am. If something is immoral, illegal, unethical, not going to do it. So don't compromise yourself. Don't compromise your value in who you are. Be comfortable being yourself, and bring your whole self to work. Now, in this virtual environment, that means something a little different. You can tell I have my my Zoom background on. That's because you may not want to see my whole self, because I'm in my makeshift office. When COVID hit, we had to shift the word of 2020, shift, pivot. And my office right now is a corner in my master bedroom. Not ideal, but it works. But I'm saving you from all of that with my background. But I'm bringing my whole self still, because I'm here. I wouldn't normally look like this maybe in the office, have my hair a little bit differently, probably have a little bit more makeup on, some lipstick and that. So you're getting my real true self here. And you want to do that because it's creating a culture of inclusion. You've got to get to know someone a little bit better in order to really kind of be your true self and make sure that you're giving input. I see some really great interaction in the panel. Where am I from? So where am I from? I'm from Central Illinois, a very small town. And by educating those who are closed-minded, having everyone think differently, than what they're used to, and thinking and believing for the better. Absolutely. Be kind. Oh, definitely. Like, who are you, right? So tell me a little more. I love this. So are you introvert? Are you an extrovert? Do you play all the sports at school? What, kind of what are those pieces and parts that make you you? So here's my story. I told you I was going to share a little bit about my story, and so let me do that. Oops, let me move this over here. There we go. So my story. Okay. So you may be able to see a little bit of this. My story, this in the top left of my screen, you will see 3 little faces, and that is me and my sisters where we grew up in Illinois. You can see I am not young. I'm probably older than most of your parents. That is me right here in the center with my diploma. That was my first degree at Eastern Illinois. I won't tell you the year because that'll give away too much. But then over here is my family. So this is my family of origin. You'll see my sister right there in the middle of those 2 boys is that sister that's sitting next to me at the picnic table. And then this sister down here in the picture with her son in the goofy hat is the one on the other side of the picnic table. And so that's part of who I am. I'm very family oriented. And then you'll see my family of choice. And so this is my husband and my 2 girls. This is my oldest daughter, Sydney. She will be 18 on election day. We're excited. She's registering to vote tomorrow. And then there's my little one, Kendall, who's not so little anymore. She's actually taller than I am, and she's only 12 years old. But this is all of who I am, right? This is part of telling my story. The other piece of my story is at Nissan is the Gay Straight Alliance at Nissan. And this is some of my friends. That's a dear friend, Greg. Some of you may recognize these faces. This is my dear friend, Kim. And this is like the Sam Champion, who you really don't want to see in person in your community, right? Because then usually there's a really bad storm. But this is like the exciting part of what I get to do. And because of GSON and of hard work, I've had a lot of great opportunities at Nissan. So this is a little bit of who I am. Bringing your whole self to work is not always easy for everyone. When you look at this chart, and this dates all the way back to 2013. So I know that some of this will, will resonate with some of you, but look, 83% in the LGBTQ community hid part of who they are when they were in the office. 63% Hispanic hid part of who they are. And then 45% straight white men. What do you think those straight white men could be hiding? And please feel free to populate the chat. Emotions, that's great. I'm gonna, got a question in the question box too, so I'll do that too. They're secretly cat people, I love it. Emotions, economic issues, absolutely. Their fears, their family issues, their religion. Oh, that's so huge. Yes. Their profession, they could be hiding their personal views. These are all fantastic, you guys. Insecurities, beliefs, absolutely. So really what this boils down to is the fact that any one of us can hide a piece of who we are. But when we do that, we're making a conscious choice not to bring our whole self. And again, if you're not bringing 100%, that percent that you're leaving behind could be the percent that could change the world. And so when we think about that at Nissan, we've gone through some struggles. Some of you may have heard of that in the news. We try to make fun of ourselves just a little bit. But we know that we've got to bring all of who we are as employees so that we can continue to drive the innovation that makes Nissan who we are. as an organization. So I'm going to share with you a couple of videos that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into Nissan and into telling Nissan's story, not just Cathy's story, but Nissan's story. So I'm going to first take you through this new and exciting video. It's a new day at Nissan. I'm going to switch over to YouTube. It is that new. I want you all to know that I could not download this video link, so we are going straight to YouTube. Hopefully it'll be okay. Uh-oh. Of course, we would experience technical difficulties. I am sure it is not my distance learners still sucking up my bandwidth. I know my screen is not sharing. It is the joy of sharing bandwidth with two teenagers. I tell you what, let's see if we can try this again. I may just have to play it right here within YouTube because I think that that's part of it. So let me, we'll just do this small. So that's just one part of Nissan. You just saw the brand new logo reveal. Some of you may have already seen it. It's literally maybe a couple weeks old. And that's our new logo. And that's us saying, you know what? We're going to be even more innovative. We've had some stumbling blocks, but we're going to get through it. And our history and our journey is part of our story, and embracing that and continuing to move forward. So I love that piece because it shows a lot of the heritage, very subtlety throughout that video. So, you know, the Japanese cherry blossoms, definitely part of our heritage. And then the other piece that I would be remiss not to share with all of you would be the new Z Proto, which is hot off the presses. And when I say hot off the presses, I mean, like, I had a conversation with our chief designer, Alfonso Albeja, last night, talking about this car. So I'll let the pictures do the talking. So I'm seeing some comments in the chat. I love it. I know. We were so excited to see that unveiling. I named my car Cherry. I love that. And so, that's part of who we are too, right? The Z has been around. It is iconic for our brand. We have enthusiasts that are just around the globe. And so it's really a phenomenal vehicle. So, this again is part of our telling our story. So yeah, and that color yellow, oh my gosh, they're calling it pearlescent, I think just pearlescent yellow, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. So I want to stop here, and I do have a couple of questions in the chat that I want to respond to make sure that I'm keeping up. So what do you believe is the most important aspect of being a leader, and how can you gain respect of others? Wow, that's a huge question. So the most important aspect of being a leader, honestly, for me, I think is being honest. If you are not honest with someone, it's very hard to gain their respect and their trust. And I feel like that is a great quality that a leader must have, and to help gain the respect of others. So what inspired you to become a voice for those that are not able to speak up? Oh, fantastic question. So it really dates back to my upbringing, which is a very small town in rural Illinois. And so if there's anyone from Illinois on the line, I grew up in Shelbyville, which is like smack dab in the middle of the state. And diversity was very different for me growing up. There was not a lot of visible diversity. It was invisible. And one of those invisible diversities that I didn't know I had friends in that group at the time were LGBTQ. And so, it's always been a part of my life. And the part that made me start GSON and start talking about it more at work was we were in a diversity conversation, and this individual shared with me, it was election time, and the individual shared with me that she didn't feel like she could fully share who she was. This is why it's important to tell your whole story. She was hiding who she was at work because of a lot of conversations that were going on around her in the office. She just did not feel comfortable. And I felt that's not okay. Because I had a friend who put a picture of his husband on his desk, and yet this friend over here didn't even feel like she could talk about what she did on the weekend. And so as a result of that, is we need to do something. And so we came together and we did. And that's where GSON was formed. It was simply out of a conversation of, what do we need to do? How can we make sure that everyone feels like they belong and can bring their whole self to work? So that's really kind of why it was, placed on my heart. And now I get to do that at a much different level in the organization, and it's not just within the LGBTQ community. It's for really anyone who feels marginalized or not able to bring their whole self to work. So it's been a fantastic journey for me, and it still continues to this day. So I want each of you to take a second right now, okay? We can see you only in the small box. Okay, that's okay. I'm good with that. So I want each of you to think about what is your story. Okay, I want to think about what your story is, and as you can tell, I'm trying to navigating my story is navigating technology tonight. And so, what is your story? What is your turn? First thing I want you to do, you can write it down if you have some paper next to you. You're old school like me, but I want you to envision your life. Envision your life in 2030. That's only 10 years from now. When I started doing this presentation, Raul, I think it was like, oh gosh, that's like forever from now. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, that's only a decade away. What do you think? What do you think your life is going to look like? Take a minute, either close your eyes or literally take a pen or a pencil, crayon, whatever you've got next to you, and start drawing. And I'm just going to throw some things out there. Do you think you'll have a family? What will your family look like? Will you live in a house? Will you live in an apartment? Are you going to have a degree? How many degrees? Where will you be working? Will you be in a big city? Or are you going to be in the country? Are you going to live in a suburban area? Are you still going to be in school? And that's okay. Are you going to be a lifelong learner? What do you think your technology is going to look like? Do you think your home will look any different than it does now? Take just a minute and think about all those things. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a second as you guys are working on that and answer one of these questions. Has working at Nissan helped open up your leadership opportunities? Would you say it boosted your leadership skills? Absolutely. Before coming to Nissan, I will share with you a little bit more of my story. Before coming to Nissan, I was laid off, I guess is the terminology you would use, as part of the recession back in 2009. And at that time, I was in a small organization and I didn't have a whole lot of leadership opportunities, but where there were, I would step up. Being at Nissan at a global organization has been an opportunity that I would not have dreamed of in a million years. And so it boosts my leadership skills on a daily basis. And I think every day I'm learning how to be a better leader. And I learn from leaders in our organization. I try to take snippets away from all of them, whether they realize it or not. And today, just this morning, actually, I was listening to a coffee chat with one of the vice presidents, the vice president of Infinity. And he said, you don't have to be loud to be bold. And that stuck with me. And I think that's one that's going to stick with me for a long time. And I feel like that's a really good leadership quality to have. You don't have to be loud to be bold. So definitely. What do you believe is your biggest accomplishment and how did you achieve it? Oh my goodness. So, I don't know that I have had my biggest accomplishment yet. So my biggest accomplishment to date, oh my goodness, that's a really hard one. I think sometimes it's how you pick yourself up, and it's not necessarily about the accomplishment itself. There's been a lot along the way, going from contractor to full-time employee, starting at an analyst 1, and now being a manager, right? I mean, there's so many accomplishments along the way professionally. Personally, I've had a lot of accomplishments, and so I think really it's been about how I've picked myself up out of whatever situation I may have been in that kind of brought me down, and that in itself really is the ongoing accomplishment. And then as a female, this will be the last one for right now. So as a female, do you think it's harder for you to get where you are now? Ooh. I think sometimes as women, we self-impose that it is harder. Do I try harder? Absolutely. Do I have to try harder? I don't know, because that's just who I am and how I function. I think that there are opportunities that are laid in front of us, and many times as women, we tend to say, oh, I'm not ready for that yet. Or, oh, gosh, I don't have every qualification that they're asking for, so I better not do it. And so I think sometimes we get inside of our heads a little too much, and that's when we, at least for me, can make it harder, because data and science tell us that's part of it. So I'm not in engineering, and I don't pretend to be an engineer. But even when I talk to my female colleagues, in even more male-dominated areas of the organization, they say a lot of the same things, and they say, how did how did he get the position and not me, right? And what didn't I do? And and I think we could say that of anyone, but most of my female colleagues on the engineering side say that they work just as hard as their male counterparts. And I think sometimes it's just about the opportunities, which is why we got to expand our network. Because if your network is exactly who looks like you, who talks like you and thinks like you, guess who's going to get promoted? The person that looks like you, that talks like you, and thinks like you. And that doesn't make for innovation. That doesn't make for a product that's going to be on the market for over 50 years, like the Z. And so you kind of have to think about it from that perspective too. So the next thing I want you all to think about, after you wrote it down, I want you to start connecting the dots. Okay? I want you to connect the dots to today. And what does that look like? So in order to have that home, maybe your house maybe it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath in a suburban area on a quiet little street. What did it take to get there? So start thinking about the dots that it's going to take you to get to where you want to go in 2030. So my guess is somewhere along the way, you're going to have a skilled trade or some kind of college degree, or even multiple degrees, depending on what your future looks like. And it's not always about the house. It's not always about the car. What does that look like? So start thinking about, how do you connect those dots in between? And I'm reading all your Q&A. Oh my goodness, like we're just gonna take a left turn off of the presentation and just answer your questions. Oh my goodness, these are fantastic. I really feel like just stopping and opening it up for that. I am gonna be part of the career panel, so maybe that'll help a little bit. So I want you to think about, how do you get from point A, where you are right now, to 2030? You've got to set goals. And I see a lot of the questions, so I feel like some of your questions may be answered as we go on. So, what did I do? Well, I had to set goals for myself, right? I had to say, I've lost my job. I lost my job in 2009. I had a 1-year-old child at the time. What am I going to do? Well, I had a goal, and my goal at that point was just to help feed my family. Seems like a pretty basic goal. But what did I do to do that? So I put together a plan, and I told my family, I said, you know what? If I don't have a job by this date, this is very specific, right? Very measurable. If I don't have a job by this date, then we are going to have to take this action, right? And I set those down, and some of them were not lofty goals. They're very simple goals. Sometimes you've got to set a goal just to get through the day. And I think, that's how you have to look at it, is your goal does not have to be, I'm going to be the next vice president of Nissan. Start small, because you got to start somewhere. Because there's not always an escalator or an elevator to get to where you want to go. Many times it's a set of stairs. And many times It's kind of like those stairs in the movie Harry Potter. You probably visualizing it already. They're moving and they're going up, and then all of a sudden you have to go down to go up, and you have to go over to go down to go back up. And so that's really sometimes how your goal setting has to take place. And so you just kind of reiterate that. And it's an iterative process, because a goal without a plan is just a wish. It's just a wish. So think about that. Like, what are you going to do today that's going to make a difference tomorrow? What is your goal? My guess is each one of you has a goal, and you probably have achieved it just by sitting here this evening and enjoying, all that you are going to get through this, next couple of days with Raul and Mariana and, oh my goodness, all the team that is going to help you. Because those are the people that it's going to take to get you there. You've got to think about your network. I did not get to where I am by myself. I did not. I had so many people along the way, and they were not always. One of the question is, what happened at your lowest point? I'd lost my job. I had a barely 1-year-old daughter. I had a 5-year-old. I feel like that was career-wise and personal life, that was one of my lowest points. But there were people to help me get out of it. It was my husband, it was my kids, it was my parents, my sisters, my neighbors, our network of friends. And even today, I cannot do what I do without all of those people. I could not be here talking to you if my husband wasn't in the next room helping me take care of my dad, who now lives with us. And so you're always thinking about, what is that network going to take, and how are you going to get to that next step? And you can have dreams and aspirations and still achieve those, even though it may seem very dreamlike. You can still achieve that as part of a goal. Absolutely, they're two different things, but you've got to have your goals to get to your dreams, right? Because it's that stair step, and it's not always going to be one step after another. And this is what your reality looks like. And I love this image, because this is always what the plan is, right? It's a very straight trajectory, but in reality, that is not what is going to happen. That's not what happened for Nissan. Our plan is a straight line up, increase market share, increase sales, right? Increase production, increase the number of diverse dealers that we have, right? I mean, always next, increase, bigger, better. But somewhere along the road, you hit something that takes you back. And so how do you do that, right? And so it's not always sometimes those huge, big mountains. It's those little bitty stones in your shoe that are causing the problem. And it's going to hurt all the way up. So if you don't take care of those little pebbles on the climb to the mountain, it's going to be painful the entire trip. So I want you to practice. We're probably not going to have time tonight. And I want to make sure that we do stay on time. But, I want you to practice. I want you to think about what has been your story. And you guys have had phenomenal questions. But what is your story? And how are you going to tell that story? It's taken me, right, from the start of where we were until now. You still don't know my whole story, but you know a lot more about me. You don't get 45 minutes every time you meet someone. You might get 2. And sometimes in a meeting, you might get 5 minutes on the agenda with the chairman. And by the time it's said and done, you actually have 30 seconds to get your point across and get the approval. So how do you shift this big story and boil it down? And that's what I want you all to do. I want you all to work on this. It is not going to happen tonight. It may not happen tomorrow, but think about it, plan it out, and bubble it down. into that elevator speech that you can still have, and you can, keep having that conversation. So I want to make sure that I'm good on time. And I hope that we're okay. All
Yes,
right.
we are certainly on
Okay,
time.
good. So I guess I want to answer some of the questions that are on the screen. I'm going to close out the chat for just a second so I can focus on these questions. I think I've answered some of the obstacles that I've faced and how I've overcome them. If I could go back and do it all over, would I change anything? Oh, that's always a good one. Sometimes I say yes, and sometimes I say no, because I think no matter what we're faced with, again, it's how we react to it. So would I change something? In some situations, I would change my reaction. Would I change the situation? Not always, because it made me who I am today. And one of the pictures that you may have noticed looked like a picture of a moving van with my family. And that was just a year ago. And so, reality happens. As I shared, my husband's in the next room with my dad. My dad moved in with us a year ago, a little over a year ago now. And so because of that, we're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to, dad's going to live with us. We don't have enough space. So I've been blessed to be able to do that. And be able to kind of deal with those challenges. How do I rise above and differentiate myself from others? How do I convey the best you? I'm me.
FYI, Cathy, we're at the 1 minute mark.
Okay, fantastic, Raul. So,
answer that last question. Please do so.
Okay, fantastic. So how do I differentiate yourself? So I think it's back to the beginning. It's tell your story, because you can't tell anybody else's. And that's what makes me different, is telling my story and who I am, and not being afraid or ashamed of that story. So I know there's so many questions, and you know what? The best thing is, I'm going to flip through these slides. Woo, mercy, I flipped too fast. But connect with me on LinkedIn. You are more than welcome at any time to connect with me on LinkedIn. I try not to connect on social media because personal is a little bit separate from work. So please do find me on LinkedIn. You will find me under Cathy Lively. Google Cathy Lively at Nissan. You will find me. So yeah, sorry. Close the Q&A. There you go. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, and then practice your story. And I'll see you guys in a little bit during the panel.
Thank you so much, Cathy. As always, that was awesome. And judging by the comments, you can see the students were really enjoying your presentation. We really appreciate you and Nissan for supporting the Washington Youth Leadership Seminar for yet another year. Thank you so much, Cathy. And for participants out there, don't forget to click on the next workshop, Preparing the Future Workforce. That's going to begin in 15 minutes. Thank you so much, Cathy, as always.
Thank you all so much. I will see you all soon.
Good deal. Still there, Cathy?
I'm still here. Are we good?
Yeah, that was good, man. Well, you always come through, and students seems like they were really engaged without necessarily having to, go to that panel promotion. But, you see they were just spitting out statements, and, they had great questions. The students we usually bring over for the seminar are usually, top-notch students. So you're going to get that type of engagement throughout the 3 days.
Absolutely. No, I know.